Hello and welcome back to KSP POV, where we play Kerbal Space Program in first person. In today's episode, unfortunately we're going to take one step backwards, but fortunately we're also going to take two steps forward, so we're going to make a little bit of progress by the end of it. But starting off, I made the unfortunate decision to change from restock to Ven stock. And so it's basically, if you're not familiar, those are two different visual parts mods. They change around the style of the parts, and they do not agree with each other. And going from one to the other mid-save can be a little bit problematic when you have specifically designed parts that are no longer available on your craft. So we are going to start off with a whole bunch of satellites being destroyed. Fortunately, they were just the mapping satellites, the spy sats that we put up in the previous episodes. However, that means that we basically negated all the work that we did in the previous episodes. Some of them did actually scan long enough that we do have the data and the maps from them, but as we see here coming into the tracking station, we only have our very first satellite, the Orb Weaver. So we got a clean slate here, and we've got fun, interesting, new looking parts. I prefer the Ven stock remapping of the parts. I think they look a little bit cleaner. Most people use restock because it is like required for a lot of other mods. It's a dependency, but I prefer Vens. However, currently, I have not done this yet, but I'm currently debating on going back to restock for a particular mod that I want to get there's dependency of, but not sure if that's a good idea, because I'm not sure which satellites we have or which crafts that we have that will be affected. Anyways, I'm kind of talking through this. We have a bunch of science to spend from the last episode, so we're going to go ahead and start off by unlocking heavy rocketry. And we're actually going to want heavier rocketry. That's going to be our goal, because that's where the Pila engine is, and that is my favorite engine to use. It's the workhorse of my entire program. So the sooner we can get that, the better off it would be. I also am looking over here at advanced electrics, because of the communication dishes that it has. Now that we no longer have those relay satellites in place, we're gonna have to work on that. So I still have 381 science to spend, and we are in a later stage of our research and development, so things are going to be a lot more expensive soon. So we're going to have to start mounting missions to the different moons of Kerbal, because we're going to be running out of science that we can do here. When I just looked at the command modules, I'm going to go ahead and skip over that, because we are doing probes first, and so we don't need to unlock crewed capsules just yet. These are just a bunch of different little tanks. Yeah, so advanced electrics, we're going to go ahead and pick up. And this leads us into even better electronics, better solar panels that can retract, better scanning technology, all sorts of stuff. Electronics gives you new experiments and deployable experiments if you have the Breaking Ground DLC. And precision engineering is something that we're going to want to get soon, because it will allow for the creation of smaller probes, and I'm going to be focusing some of my energy in the next coming episodes on creating small compact probes that can save a lot of Delta V, and can all be launched from the same craft, so that way when we attempt our land on the Mun with 3 probes in 3 different biomes, we can just send up one rocket and make it efficient enough to handle all 3 landings. So precision engineering is going to be a big one that we're going to want to get soon, and I'm excited when we do. Advanced landing is nice, but we don't really need it. It does give us the Alcor pod, but like I mentioned before, we're not doing crude, so we're not in a rush for that. Also, the landing legs are for bigger crafts. We don't need that, because like I mentioned before, we're going small first. So we still have a bunch of science to spend, so I think I'm just going to go ahead and unlock heavier rocketry right away and just skip on over and be able to unlock the mainsail, the twin bore, and most importantly, the Pila. And there we go. So the next nodes on that is going to be the nuclear propulsion power, and that's going to be good, but we are not going to need to really deal with that just yet. Our Terra engines are more than capable of what we need to do now. We'll start dealing with that once we start going interplanetary. So I'm going to go ahead and look down here at all my contracts. I have quite a few contract packs here installed, so I have quite a few options to do. However, none of them really seem too appealing, and none of them are really focused on our goal today. So that's a testing contract. I just need a test on the launch pad. Easy enough. It'll be great. And this is a rescue contract. Now, in my entire playthrough of Kerbal Space Program and all of my series on this channel, I have avoided rescue contracts because for all of those series I've been playing with TAC life support. And the problem with that is that the moment you get within range of that craft, if you ever switch to that craft or anything like that, the calculations start and that Kerbal has 1 hour of life support left, and then they die. And so rescue missions just would like 99% end in Kerbal death. So, but we're not playing with any kind of life support this time, so I'm gonna gladly take that contract and we're gonna try to rescue a Kerbal from orbit soon, but not now. Today we are going to work on those probes, those tiny probes that I told you about, because we are going to attempt that land on the Mun with 3 different probes and 3 different biomes. Actually, it doesn't have to be 3 different probes. It could be the same probe that jumps between biomes, but we're just gonna pack it with just enough delta V to land, and then all the science experiments on board that we can, everything that we have. And we're going to do 2 onboard cameras just for symmetry. There's no real need to have 2 for this, but I kind of weighed out all the things that I can put there, and it was just the best option there. We're going to have 2 of these tiny little antennas, and at this point I'm not sure whether or not they're going to work. I'm hoping that they're going to work, and just a little bit of a spoiler ahead, they do, so that's nice. We're going to put on landing legs in not a 6-way symmetry, but 3-way symmetry twice, because of that camera, that landing camera that we have, prevents us from being able to mirror the engines and match that. So we're just going to throw on some extra legs. Have some lights at the bottom to light up the surface in case we come down on the dark side, because we're not going to be picky about where we land. We're going to try to land in several areas, so if we have to land on the dark side, then that's just, what we have to do. So as you see here, I have about 1300 delta V. I'm going to start the simulation and see if I can land it. I did not have a lot of control on this, so I'm going to need to put some kind of reaction wheel. But all I have are the big ones and these little tiny ones. So put the tiny ones on. They actually seem to work pretty well, so I was pretty happy with that. I'm going to put this top camera on there as a way to see my horizon as I'm landing, because I put I only put 2 vertical cameras on there. I didn't have anything to show me the horizon as I was horizontal. So And I want to have a little bit more communications control on here, so I'm looking to see what kind of antenna or dish I can put on here. And I decided to just stick with the tried and true Communitron 16. I'm going to place it in this kind of configuration so that way it takes up the least amount of space, B, doesn't interfere with the decoupler, as these are going to be stacked on top of each other. So I just kind of have it pointed outwards that way. It'll also allow us to easily determine which camera is our horizontal camera, as we'll be able to see the tip of the Communitron in that view. So that's kind of nice. So now I'm just setting up all my action groups. Pretty standard stuff, just having all my experiments on one, having my deploy of solar panels and communications on another. And that's really all I need. So I go ahead and take off that second onboard camera, and I adjust the horizontal camera to kind of fit a little bit better, so that too doesn't interfere with the decoupler. We're going to attach our lights to the landing gear stage rather than the lighting action group. Kind of balance that out a little better. It's looking pretty good. Just want to kind of tidy things up. I really enjoy making tiny probes like this. Oh, real fast, these parts are from the Smart Parts mod. They allow for certain level of automated actions here. So I have an altimeter action group activator, because these basically just activate certain stages and action groups. And then I have an electric charge meter reader that will also activate certain things based on how much electric charge it has. So. But as I was saying, I really enjoy making tiny probes. That's one of my favorite things to do in KSP. I was starting to be overtaken by flying, but as well as a little bit of station building. I've been really enjoying the free IVA mod, and I'm excited to start doing things with that for the series. I have the footage already ready. It's just a matter of getting these episodes out. So I hope you've been enjoying it, because there's plenty more to come. Yeah, I go ahead and get rid of the smart parts. I don't think I'm going to really make too much of a use out of them. They'll probably be better for different crafts, but on these little probes, not necessary. I put the Communitron 16 back in place. I had taken it off earlier, but rethought that decision. And so now I'm saving it as a subassembly, because this is basically done. So now let's start working on the craft that will deploy it, and this indeed will be a crewed mission. We are going to be using the Starlix command pod IVA once again, so this nice high-tech analog. Throwing on a reaction wheel, so we have nice adequate control and a heat shield and a couple parachutes to bring us home safely. And this is all we need to bring back to Kerbal is the pilot. Let's go ahead and rate our parachutes, put them on their action groups, and let's start stacking our subassembly on top of this rocket. We name it the LL Placer 1, and it's the Lunar Lander. And then we just go ahead and we're going to stack 3 of those, and then we're going to wrap it all in fairing. There we go. There is our payload. So now we're going to be working on our translunar stage, as well as our return. It's going to be our translunar capture and return stage. So this is a return stage here. It's going to just be powered by a Beagle, which is the Vens parts mod equivalent to the Terrier, just slightly better ISP and thrust. So now I debated playing with our first early nuclear engine, the Sheba, but in the end I just decided to go with more Beagles. I like having a little bit more thrust than the Shebas offer. And I throw some tack explosives on there, as well as some nose cones to kind of tidy everything up. And I throw the tack explosives on there is because this stage is going to be discarded most likely either in orbit of the Mun or in orbit of Kerbin in a wild non-escape orbit. And I don't want to have debris cluttering up my save file. You know, the more things you have for the game to calculate, the worse it runs. So that's why I've been really happy with the tack explosives mod, because it helps me keep everything tidy like that. So we're going to go ahead and do another simulation. In that simulation, we went from low Kerbin orbit all the way to the Mun, circularized, dropped off our payloads, and returned back to Kerbin safely. So we know that this craft that we're looking at here can do that. So now all we have to do is design a craft that can take it into low Kerbin orbit. And you know, that's all it needs is, you know, if it brings us any bit farther, that's great, but as long as we can get this right here into low Kerbin orbit, then our mission will be successful. And now we're going to build this lifting stage pretty similar to the way that we build all of our lifting stages once we get the Pila engine. These big orange tanks, and with some side boosters, also with big orange tanks, 3 Pilas, and some fuel ducts. I decided to take off those extra side boosters on that upper stage because honestly, this lifting stage will be able to bring us all the way to the Mun with little problems. So we might as well just take advantage of the Delta V that we have and save a little bit of weight on that. So turns it back into a toothbrush as opposed to a mostly unrealistic type of rocket. So I loaded up with some tack explosives because we'll probably not be able to recover that. And we're going to go ahead and put some solar panels and communication dishes on this translunar stage because we're going to want that on the way back. We're going to be able to utilize some of that from the probes, but on the way back when we don't have those, we're going to want to have some kind of solar generation, energy generation, and some kind of communication. So now I'm just making sure that my action groups are all set up. I'm going to put some launch stabilizers on there. And so we're going to go ahead and start the simulation and see how this launch vehicle does. And it actually performs very well. Like, we came out with plenty of extra Delta V than we needed. We were able to intercept the Mun just on this stage alone. Like, we could possibly even just get away with that design right there. But we're going to keep it a little over-engineered as we are going to utilize this design a little bit later. But one of the things that I had a problem with is my stages. Oof, if you look over there, my stages were all messed up. So I had to kind of come in here and readjust, because you don't want to have to readjust that on the launch pad, because you'll just have to do that over and over again if you end up reverting. So it's best to just handle your staging in the VAB, so it's that way every time. So now I'm going to go ahead and reroute. We're going to reroute this lower stage, and we are going to turn that into a subassembly because this is quite a hefty lift vehicle, and it's already designed the way that we like it, and it's an easy enough thing to do. We can just make it every single time with every single craft, but since we have the ability of saving as a subassembly, we might as well. So now we have Jebediah Kerbal in the cockpit because he has been complaining over and over again about how all the other Kerbals are getting achievements, and he's left just testing vehicles. And so while he's not going to be making any major milestones here, you know, Bob already took care of that, and you know, we've already been in orbit of the Mun, and we've already had our first EVA, so he's not going to be doing anything different. He's just going to be completing this mission of placing these landers in orbit. But he is slated to be the first Kerbal to step foot on the Mun, and so that's good enough for him. So he's just going to be enjoying this trip and planning his historic first words as he steps upon its surface. So now I just want to make sure all my staging is correct again. Everything looks good. We're going to rebuild the fairing to put everything in place. I think that fairing actually came out nicer than the previous version, so I'm pretty happy with that. Here's just a quick look at the Delta V stats. If you want to pause that, you can see what this rocket can do. And yeah, I'm very happy with this craft. I'm very happy with these little landers. I'm excited to put these on the surface of the Mun, and we're going to, of course, you know, be doing that in the probe control room. We are going to be flying this rocket in the Starlex command pod, so it's going to be fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. And with this, if we can land all 3 probes on the Mun, we will complete the Strategia program to explore the Mun with probes, because we just need to land in 3 different spots, so that's why we have the 3 different probes. That fairing didn't come out as good as the last one, so unfortunately, but that's just how it goes sometimes. And the fairings can be a little difficult to get completely precisely what you want sometimes, so you just gotta deal with what you got. And once again, staging, because anytime you do anything with part of the craft that you've already completed, it likes to walk around and change the stages. So it's very, very important. You know, in carpentry they say measure twice, cut once. In rocketry, stage 8 times. Go ahead and just check it over and over and over again, because sometimes it'll change. Also check your cockpit, because sometimes Kerbals like to sneak in there. So the craft was too heavy for the launch pad, so we went ahead and upgraded that and put the rocket out. So now our launch pad can handle an unlimited amount of weight because it's fully upgraded. But here we are, launching mid-morning. It's best to do that because we get the best visuals from our camera. It is a fairly cloudless day, which I guess is nice. It just means that we won't be able to see the cloud layer as we pass through it. Once again, this is the Starlex command pod. It is an IVA mod. It has several dependencies, so if you want this, make sure you read the notes. Go ahead and turn on all my warning systems, such as G-force exceeding and ground proximity warnings and stuff like that. We make sure our DPI controls work. We're going to go ahead and turn on our camera that focuses on our side boosters, so that way we can see when they decouple. Turn on our chatterer box that provides the little frequency and little commentary that the Kerbals make occasionally on the trip. Let's throttle up. Get ourselves ready. I like to set up my screen in a certain way so I can see all the dials that I need to. They're all easily accessible. But now that we're ready, we're going to go ahead and turn our volume down because this rocket is loud, and we are going to fire. Just like that, the rocket takes off like a speeding bullet. I was gonna say takes off like a rocket, but that's not the best choice of the phrase. But it takes off really fast because it's got a huge thrust to weight ratio. As you see here, we are like over 4, so we're gonna throttle down just a little bit, bring ourselves to 3, which is still quite a bit, but at least we're not gonna be in as much of a danger of tearing ourselves apart. And then we easily pitch over because the Pilot engines have some pretty awesome gimbal control. So we are just going to launch this beast. This is why I really wanted heavier rocketry, and I was willing to just spend the science to just get it as soon as possible, because this makes our launch to orbit just so much easier. But of course, we've done that launch to orbit several times so far, even with this command pod, so we're going to go ahead and skip forward a little bit. Obviously, our side boosters decoupled successfully and crashed back down. Didn't put any parachutes on it, so we weren't going to save it. But that's okay, we knew that we weren't going to. So I kicked out my engine just a little bit to pitch myself over, and started pitching a little too much, and so we're going to kick it on again. Kind of switch back, and we're going to point ourselves at the horizon so that way we can circularize. This does have a reaction wheel in it, but it's at the top near the command pod, and so it doesn't have a lot of control authority on this, and the fact that it's so beefy of a tank means that it turns like a boat, you know, and so we're just having to tap forward on our propulsion just a little bit so we can regain some control. Alright, in a minute and 40 to our maneuver node, I went ahead and locked our stage because we don't want to accidentally stage this early by hitting the spacebar, you know, unintentionally and stuff, and that'll just ruin our mission if we can't get to orbit before running out of our fuel. And at 15 seconds to the maneuver node, we're going to go ahead and stabilize our SAS and just point it straight at the horizon. As you see by the negative number, our periapsis is rapidly increasing. Just keeping an eye on our DPAI, keeping an eye on our delta V remaining. And just like that, we're at 127. We only have 14 meters per second of delta V remaining. So that was a properly engineered craft, if I may say so myself. So we went ahead and deployed our main solar panels. We're going to go ahead and target the MUN and start plotting our maneuver in. We're paying attention to the ejection angle. We were initially just going to approach the MUN this way, but we did that in the last time we sent a Kerbal to the MUN, so we will eventually just plot out a maneuver normally. But here I am just time warping to closer to the appropriate phase angle. If you don't know what this gauge is, briefly, at least with the MUN, I can't confirm with anything else, but at least with the MUN, in order to intercept it, you make sure that both of those little triangles are aligned at 0, and you burn prograde, and you will be able to intercept. But of course, it's important not to time warp too fast, because you may miss it. So as we see here from our DPAI, we are close to our prograde, but not quite. And here we're just going to go ahead and plot in our maneuver, because I realized the phase angle is great for just getting a rough interception, but I kind of want to be a little more precise with where I come in, since I am going to be dropping off probes. I want them to have the best opportunity for landing by having the best orbit possible. Want a nice circularized orbit. And I'm probably going to aim for a polar orbit, because that will be the easiest way to kind of choose where I want to land. I'll have all the biomes available to me, as opposed to if I went equatorially, because then I would mainly only have the biomes around the center. So we've got ourselves pointed towards our target. We locked in prograde, and that happens to be the same direction. And the closer we get to our maneuver node, as you can see, the target is aligning itself with us. So at 9 seconds to the maneuver I burn, we have our thrust limiter turned down pretty significantly to make sure that we don't overburn. It's always better to burn for longer and make sure that you have an accurate burn. When it comes to space travel, you don't necessarily have to go fast. You don't have to do things quickly. If you have the time to spend, you can do things a little more slowly and still arrive at the same destination. So I'm watching the maneuver delta V requirement go down, and when it hits 0 or close to 0, I'm going to try to kill. And just throttle up a little bit. And as you see, our hair now starting to go up, so that means that we are past the point. And so we're going to have to make a little bit of a course correction. So we're going to plot that out, but before I do anything, I'm going to want to turn my thrust down. I'm going to limit it to more accurately hit my target. And with the Beagle engine and the Terrier as well, turning it down to its minimum can be really helpful. Like sometimes turning it down by like 20, 30, 40%, you barely notice a difference. It still thrusts so much. It's such a efficient engine that really you need to crank it down to its like bare minimum. So now I'm using precise maneuver to adjust the progrades, the normals, to reach a polar approach. So there we go. We have our maneuver set, so let's go ahead and kind of tilt ourselves over to align with the target. Truthfully, I should align myself with the sun more than the target. We have plenty of time and plenty of control to align ourselves with the target direction once we get closer to the node. But I'm not too worried. This craft has plenty of battery. It has many solar panels, because if you include the solar panels of the probes, then we've got quite a bit to work with. So there we go, we are lined up. Everything looks good, and we are going to be ready to make our mid-course correction shortly. So here I jumped ahead 10 seconds to the maneuver, and even throttled down, even with the thrust limiter up so low, still only 4-second burn. There we go. We're going to go ahead and remove that node. We're going to return to the map mode to check our work. See how our orbit or how our trajectory looks. And I am quite happy to say that it was basically exactly where we wanted it, 36 kilometers above the surface. So let's go ahead and plot in our capture burn. We are going to bring our periapsis a little bit lower though, to 17 kilometers. And I turned my thrust limiter back off a little bit more, not completely, but enough to have a much more desirable burn time. So now I'm just time warping to the sphere of influence change, and it always takes a little bit during this time as the computer is processing the changeover. But before we know it, we are now within the sphere of influence of the Mun. So we can see it down there in our bottom camera. It's nice. Still have plenty of time before our maneuver, so we can go ahead and just get ourselves aligned with the sun for now and watch the camera as the Mun slowly approaches. Let's speeding up a little bit, but trying to be very careful with our time warp not to speed right on past it. And now the craft is aligned to retrograde as opposed to pointed directly at the target, so that way we can maintain sun on our solar panels. But as you see here, as we approach the maneuver and the DPAI, you can see that the craft itself naturally orients itself towards the target because the target is retrograde. So we are rapidly approaching our maneuver. We slow down our time warp. And at 2 seconds to the maneuver, we go ahead and fire and rapidly bring down our apoapsis to a cool 36.4 kilometers, which was exactly what we were planning for. Like 36 was what we were planning for, but the 0.4 won't matter all that much. Our periapsis of 18 kilometers is going to provide us for a nice easy touchdown for our probes, so I'm very happy with that. We're going to go ahead and time warp to the light side of the Mun before we do anything else, because we want to be able to see our probes when we separate them. We want to be able to control them and have solar panel on them as soon as possible. So we're going to go ahead and stage that first probe and release it into the vacuum of space. However, that's going to be where we end today's episode. In the next episode, we're going to focus solely on the landings of these 3 probes, and I'm looking forward to it. I hope you are as well. But anyways, that's where I'm going to leave today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're looking forward for more. If you did, please consider giving me a like, drop me a comment, let me know your thoughts, and I will see y'all in the next one. Take care.